War.
World War II and what rationing is.
Well, if I remember correctly, oh, gas. There was gas rationing. You couldn't buy, you were allowed X number of gallons per month, right?
That's right.
How did they know how many?
Well, you had a book.
Cards. You had cards.
You had a book with coupons. With
You
coupons
would purchase them.
No, you didn't purchase it. They were given to you. You could buy just so much meat per month, sugar per month, butter per month. What else? Coffee? I don't remember all, everything that was rationed, but I do know gas rationing and meat and
Sugar and nylons. Definitely.
sugar. I think coffee also were rationed. And, but as I said, it was different with some people. Like Sarah was home, and she didn't feel the rationing too badly because Joe was in the food business and he was able to get her a lot of these things.
Yeah,
Am I right?
Yeah, I got everything that was rationed. I got whatever I needed.
Did you get more than what was rationed?
Oh, sure.
You snuck a little bit on the side?
Oh, sure.
No, not on the side. He was able to get it in the store.
But it was more than what he was
He
out.
worked with the customers. If the customer didn't use one item, so gave him something else.
It's okay now. They won't come and get you. You can admit it now. Did you get a few extra items?
You know, silk stockings. There was rationing of silk stockings, Gert. Not only Rand's, because he was from Gert's department store. The woman who was the wife of the owner used to shop in the Clinton Hill. So she used to come in there and give him as many stockings as he wanted.
Nylon, Sarah. Nylons. You can get all the Lyle stockings that you wanted.
Okay.
It was just the nylons that were rationed.
Whatever was rationed, we got from Mrs. Gert.
You can look right there. That's what you see. You want to go say hi? Here. This is Joshua. Say hi, Josh.
Hello.
Hi, sweetheart.
Hi, you.
Hi, sweetheart.
You can go sit with them.
I love you.
Yeah.
So, okay, so World War II. Now, how did it affect you?
Now Uncle Ben was classified 1B.
I want my belt on my gosh.
Okay.
My belt is not. I know I don't want my belt on. He doesn't.
Her military career.
Military. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Gert. Life for you during World War II.
Yeah, we moved into our apartment the beginning of January, and I think I broke it up in April.
You what?
Broke up the apartment in April, moved out.
Oh.
Because Ben was reclassified. No, he still was 1B, but they were calling 1Bs in.
Okay.
This was after Pearl Harbor. At one time, 1Bs they were going in for clerical. They were not supposed to be sent overseas. So after Pearl Harbor, they called in the 1Bs, which meant that I broke up the apartment, put everything in storage, and went back to live with my mother. When did he go in? He went in March, I think. January, February, March. No, I broke it up at the April, May, whatever.
Of 1942.
Of 42, yeah. And then he was shipped to Scottsfield, Illinois. And he was in the Air Corps. And at the time he was sent, they would put him on a train. He took his basic training at Miami, on Miami Beach. And then they put...
In the Ambassador Hotel.
No, not the Ambassador.
On Washington Street.
No, it wasn't the Ambassador. there was another hotel, which incidentally they refurbished and now they're renting out.
I know it.
Yeah. But anyway, he was put on the train basically without any orders. They didn't know what to do with him once they got up to Scott Field. They didn't have any orders for him, but they had to absorb them. He lived on the train, I think, for 4 or 5 days before he was absorbed into Scott Field, and they made a guard out of him. And I used to visit him like every 3 months or so.
How'd you get there? By train?
By train, yeah. By train, we reserved a seat. Very much like the airplanes today. You reserve a seat. And it took me, let's see, I used to leave at 6 o'clock at night, and I got there like 4 o'clock the next day. This was traveling constantly. And then, I think it was the end of 42, when he was stationed at Scott Field permanently, that I decided to go out and live there. So I was with him from the end of 42 until the end of 45. We were in Scott Field and we were in Schnookfield.
Now, did either of you have any family who were overseas fighting?
No, no.
You too, Grandma?
One that he hurt his leg where he had that removable cast.
Scotfield. That was in Scotfield.
And when did he come?
Twice he hurt his leg.
Yeah, he came to visit for leave.
Once. I was with him. We came back together with the cast.
Can't remember. One was a few times it happened, didn't only once, when he came on leave and left. And one time in particular, she ran after him in the street and laid on the floor and screamed, "Uncle Ben, weggegangen."
What's that mean?
Uncle Ben, weggegangen.
Not during the war,
Anyway.
Sarah.
Uncle Ben
It
what?
sure was. That was not during
Uncle
the
Ben
war,
went away?
Sarah. That's when he had the car and he used
That's
to
it.
drive away before. She was much younger.
He was in service and he was going away back.
She was born in 36, so you're talking she was 6 years old in 42.
Gert,
She didn't do that in 42 because I remember
Gert,
stories
he
that
was-
she told
he
me.
was on leave, Gert.
So,
He was on leave and he was
How old were
going
you?
away. He was walking through Ridgewood Avenue. She lay down the street and she had a tantrum, Uncle Benny, I beg you, Gangan.
and that means Uncle Ben
That-
what?
that's
And what does that mean?
She wouldn't
He
do
wanted
that.
Uncle Ben went
Sarah.
away.
Sarah, she wouldn't do that when she was 6 years old. She was much younger. This was before we were married, that you told me these stories. Ben used to go away and she used that's what...
No way, Gert. Gert, that you can't change my mind. I know for sure. He
At
went
6,
away.
7
He
years
was
old?
in uniform. He was gone away. He was in uniform.
Maybe he was a Boy Scout.
No, not true.
Okay. During World War II, did you guys pay attention to the battles that were going on in Europe?
course.
And did
You
you
were
know
well aware
where
of it. You were well aware
the
of it.
daily updates on?
Definitely, definitely. You had who, Cronkite? No, who's the one that died? One of the commentators.
Ed Reese?
No, Red, he's still living. No, I'm going back. Don't forget, I'm going
Walter
back to
Winchell.
1943, 1944.
Walter Winchell.
Walter Winchell, was he still alive at that time?
Sure, he announced
He
the
was
war
the-
thing.
Yeah, Walter
It
Winchell.
was all Walter Winchell.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Mr. and Mrs. America and all the ships at sea.
That's right. He was.
Yeah, but don't
yeah.
forget, I was out in Illinois at the time.
Well, he
so
was
we
on
didn't
all,
get the same thing
on
that
all
you got.
radios. He was on all.
No, we didn't get the same thing that,
He was in the movies. When they had the newsreels in the movies.
yeah, the,
You could
the
get his
movie.
voice all the time too.
Yeah, no, you were well aware of what was going on.
Was there any time during World War II that you felt that the the war was going badly for the Americans? I mean, like at what point did you feel that the Americans were going to win the war?
Always.
The whole time there was never...
Always. There was never any, in my mind, there was never any doubt.
Mm-hmm. Grandma,
Definitely
same with
not.
you? Same with you, Grandma?
How did
you
you
always,
feel?
as soon as the Americans went into the war,
I had a lot of confidence in America.
did you feel that we should go into that war?
That I
Over in
You
Europe?
know, let me explain something to
can't.
you. Let me explain something to you. At that time, the American public was not as well aware of what was happening as you are today. As far as Pearl Harbor,
you were told everything after it happened.
no, that isn't what I'm bringing out. Well, of course, you were told when it happened that this happened. They were well aware that Pearl Harbor was going to be bombed. They broke the code. The Americans broke the code. They knew what was happening. Roosevelt wanted in the war. And that was the only way we could get into the war. Don't forget, we had the Lend-Lease. We were sending them everything. Pearl Harbor was a surprise to the American people, but not to those on the knowing end of it, on the in.
But at the time, I mean, that's what's come out. Historians have claimed years later that the code was broken and all that. At the
Oh,
time,
no.
though, living there,
We
suddenly,
didn't know about it.
absolutely,
We didn't know. You
suddenly
didn't
the
know
Japanese
about it.
attack, and you hear on the radio,
Terrible.
horrible. Was your first
Terrible.
instinct, we got to,
You're
so
going in.
we're going
You
in,
have to avenge all this of what they did in Pearl Harbor. It had to be avenged.
and it wasn't just the Japanese, you were also going to go and fight over in Europe, which is a different battle.
That's right.
And the American
But
people had
we
no problem with
started
that.
with Japanese.
And the American people just,
Well, then you heard, oh, you weren't even that much aware of the Holocaust. You didn't know too much about it on this side.
no, not until,
You didn't know about it. In fact, we were not even told, we did not even know when that ship came in. They called it Ship of Fools, if you remember.
No.
The people that came in from Germany on this ship, like about 600 people, and no country would let them land and take the people. And they were stationed off the coast of Florida, I don't know for how many weeks. And they had to go back to Germany, and those people were killed.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there was a ship
And this was
That was very
pre-Pearl
bad.
Harbor?
after
this-
Pearl Harbor.
this-
No, this was pre-Pearl Harbor.
I was going to say after Pearl Harbor.
Pre-Pearl Harbor, that's right. They knew what was going on. Roosevelt knew what was going on over there. He knew about the Holocaust. We didn't know about it until after the war.
Pre-war. What was your view of Hitler? Pre-Pearl Harbor. Suddenly when Hitler goes and invades Poland,
It was a terrible
1939.
thing. It was a terrible thing.
but the view of Hitler was not. He was just,
Hitler was a terrible thing. I mean, he was making war on these other countries, and what do you call it? Mussolini sided with him, and then of course they were going into Russia. They were against Russia. They were fighting
they were
Russia.
with Russia initially.
Hmm?
I thought they were initially with Russia, and then Hitler turned on Russia
Probably.
later
yeah.
on.
Mm-hmm.
But
And they were fighting Russia. But basically, now my mother and father went to Europe like in 1932. She had a couple of sisters there, and I think a couple of brothers that were living in Germany. Like about three or four families. And she said to them, come to America.
This was in Austria,
No, this was in Berlin,
in Berlin.
in Germany. And she said to them, come to America.
How'd they get to Germany? They were they were born in Austria.
They migrated to Germany, to Berlin. My aunt had a very exclusive shop there, Erna, where she used to make clothes for people when they came in. In fact, she was being recompensed for the business that they
Erna
took
was
away from
not
her.
Loretta's mother, you told me.
Yes,
Oh,
Loretta's mother.
mother.
Right. So she said to them,
Loretta, what's the last name?
my cousin Loretta,
Last name? Wait, what's your last
Catcher,
Catcher?
Tricia? Was it originally Tricia?
it was originally Fisher, you knew Loretta.
Yeah.
So they said no, they didn't want to come to America. They had a beautiful life there. One owned a factory. One had
They had a lot of money.
my aunt and uncle had a lot of money.
Because they came over with a lot.
That's right.
They smuggled it in some way. I don't know how they
She
did.
smuggled it in through Switzerland. She was a very shrewd person. And she used to make trips. She saw the handwriting on the wall.
Pre-World War II? I mean, pre-1939 she did leave?
She came over in 39.
In 39?
Yeah, she came over in 39. I think like about June, something like that. And the others didn't want to come over. Then, when things got bad, one family went to Palestine. One went to, I think, Australia. Addie's mother and father went to Poland. Addie went to Russia.
Addie
Addie and Frida.
Addie and Frida Goldstein. Okay.
who are relatives or just friends?
No,
Cousins.
Addie is my cousin, my first cousin.
I thought they were just neighbors of grandma. I didn't know.
They were neighbors of,
They
Grandma.
lived in Myers.
They lived in her
Why
house.
did they were cousins?
but Addie is my first cousin.
I did not know that.
Addie is my mother's sister's son.
I did not know that.
And he didn't go to Poland with his parents, but he went to Russia and he wanted to fight the Germans with Russia. But they wouldn't let him join the army there. And they sent him to the interior of Russia, all the way into the interior, and he worked for the Russians, but not as in the battle, not as a soldier. And that's where he met Frida, because she had to leave the city that she was in and go to this area because of the bombings.
They were in concentration camps.
Who?
Frida and Addie.
No, they were
They
not.
worked in the...
No. They worked afterwards with the people from the concentration camps.
Did they?
Because Addie spoke English. And he spoke German.
But they hid in the forest.
So that's what he did.
Wasn't there a story about Addie and Frida hiding in the forests or something during the war?
We'll have to get them on tape.
No.
I thought there was a thing about that. I thought I heard them talking about that one time.
No, I don't think Addie and Frida at any time were under any risk out there.
We'll have to get them on tape. We'll get them next.
Yeah, you can get Frida and Addie on tape and
I'd love
see.
to.
They'll tell you.
Yeah,
I would
I'm
love to.
curious because they went through some kind of
I
hardship,
seem to remember
some bad
something.
hardship during the war.
And where was Ruthie conceived? Wasn't she conceived in Europe there somewhere? She wasn't born here.
No, Ruthie was born in, I think she was born in Russia. Because Ruthie was like 4 years old, 5 years old when she came over.
Somehow
still
I
picture
remember
the-
hearing
I
a
can
story
still
of
picture
being her
the four of them coming in. Well, not Michael, with just Ruthie coming into Loretta's house. I was there when they
Came off
came
the
in for the
boat?
first time they were brought.
You were at the house?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I just seem to
And we
recall a
was
story about
wearing
them
the
being,
hat,
her
you
being
know, all
conceived
She
in
had
the forest.
ringworm.
Yes,
Something.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, yeah, she had ringworm. So,
And they let her in with ringworm?
yeah, well, she came over on a transport. We brought them over.
They didn't have to go through Ellis Island?
No. No. We picked them up in New York. I remember we went there. I was there with Mark at the time. Mark was about, 2 years old, I think.
Your son, Mark.
Yeah.
What kind of a transport that they shouldn't have to go through customs or through immigration?
They did on the other side.
Yeah, well, that happens anyway. I mean, usually you have to go.
Well, after that, when did they do away with Ellis Island?
Oh gosh, I
A
don't
long
know.
time, Bobby.
We still have to go through immigration somewhere.
What?
You come over
That's
now.
what I said, on the other side.
Well, you on this side.
I don't think he,
Keep going. Yeah, still going.
oh, no, I don't think he went through anything here, because in order to get on the ship, he had to be sponsored,
Okay.
and we had to pay his passport. Not his passport, his,
Immigration money.
no, the transportation money. I remember we all chipped in to pay for that.
How did you get in touch with each other after the war?
After the war,
Yeah, I mean, how'd you find each other? I mean, everybody was over here. They were over there. It was a little chaotic.
evidently, you know, I don't remember that part of it, but evidently they must have contacted us. And we brought them over.
It'd be very interesting, I think,
I mean, like, find
get
out
a
how
chance
they-
on the internet to find out about Frida and
How
I.
they knew
I
where you
don't,
guys
I
were
don't think they had to
located.
go through Ellis Island. We didn't pick them up in Ellis Island.
You can
We
ask them.
picked them up at the dock in New York. That I know, and he came over on a refurbished battleship.
So in other words, only information you can get is that people that came in through Ellis Island, that's the
That's
Yeah.
all.
On that side,
Oh.
yeah.
That's all, just the records on Ellis Island. That's all.
I remember during the war we used to have those blackouts.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And you'd have the wardens going around outside and you hear the sirens.
Yeah.
And you'd have to pull the black shades down.
Well, see, that was by you, but not where I was.
Well, you were on base. Were you living on base?
No, I wasn't living on base, but we were in the interior of the country. I was in
didn't have-
Illinois.
Okay. And they didn't have
They didn't
flags?
have that in Illinois.
No, they didn't have
No.
flags.
It was
The
only
what?
on the East Coast and the West
Blackouts?
Coast.
Yeah, where they would make you turn out all your lights. You'd hear a siren. They had wardens that went up and down with helmets on, and they'd holler if you had a black in your windows. You had the black
You
shades.
had black
that came
shades
down.
that you pulled down.
And we
Right.
we'd have to sit in the dark. You couldn't have any lights on, and they'd holler at you to turn them off if you had any lights on. And then we sat by a little radio. Well, it wasn't a little radio. It was the one that stood on it was on the floor type thing, you know, and it had a little window on it. We'd sit around this radio, and this window would light up, and they had to cover it so that it shouldn't make any light. No.
Come
Yeah,
sit in the
but
middle
now wait
here.
a minute.
Go
Couldn't you have a light
Go.
if your windows were blacked out?
No, because they said you could see some light through. They didn't want any light whatsoever. Like when you have a shade drawn, this space is a quarter of an inch or something on either side.
Yeah,
or
but you
something.
were supposed to cover that
Well, all they had
area.
was the black shade, and they just pulled the black shades down, so everything was dark in the house.
I thought you had to have a curtain across if you wanted a
Did you have
light.
curtains across? We didn't have curtains. We didn't have curtains, so that's why we didn't do it. That's why we kept the lights out in the house.
In other words, the minute it got dark, you had to turn the lights out?
No.
No,
When
when
the
you get the
siren,
when
when the
you get the-
sirens went on, it was an alarm. You know, like you'd hear the sirens.
Oh, I see, yeah.
And then you knew that it was an
A
alarm.
warning, it's a warning, you gotta
Yeah.
hold your shades down.
Yeah. And in school, they used to have these, I forgot what you called it, but with the kids, where they, all of a sudden, they'd have an alarm in school, and you had to hide under your desk, you had to get under the desk, or they'd have us out in the hallway, lined up in certain areas, in case for shelters, you know, during the war. I remember those things.
How often did they have the blackout drills?
Pardon me?
How often did they have these blackout
I don't
drills?
know how often. How often
No.
do you think it was?
Weekly, monthly, yearly?
No.
Oh, no,
come on.
no, the other
Come on,
day,
you probably
Every other
had
day?
it every week. You probably had it every week.
well, more
Assuming.
often than that.
So now, weren't you afraid at that point? Didn't you feel vulnerable that that there was going to be
Oh,
Germans bombing over here, or
Of course,
Japanese?
you didn't, you had to worry if it was a terrible time to go through. Sure we worried.
I wasn't worried. How old was I?
Well, you were a kid.
I remember we got bubble gum, and nobody else in the neighborhood had bubble gum because of the rationing. I was very popular. We had a whole box of bubble gum.
That your dad, that grandpa got you?
That's right.
Yeah.
You barely even see it in here.
We were very lucky. I didn't know we had Hershey bars. I remember we had Hershey bars during the war. We had a bunch of good stuff.
That's what I said. Rationing didn't bother her.
No,
No.
rationing was never a problem.
Uh,
We were very lucky.
I told you, here, keep it back.
Something that's very vague to me too. It must have been World War
He's
I.
in the camera.
That's before my time.
Yeah, I know. And I was a little girl, and the streets were packed with men, and they were pulling out from the group to get draft men to pull them. There was no draft or anything, you know, to pull them to push them into the army.
They just pulled them off the streets and to
Yeah,
take them into
yeah.
service.
Well, they were forced to go to the spot, you know, and line up in the street, and they pulled out. Luckily, my father was there. My father was in the crowd, and I was with him, and they never pulled them out to go into service.
How about that?
See, that's something, you know, that I stands out, you know.
Was it service that they were going into?
Yeah, World War I.
That's interesting. I never knew they did that.
No, they were
I
also
guess they
drafted.
didn't have a draft.
Not then.
Didn't they have a draft?
I have no idea. That's before my time. You tell me.
Had to be. Had
Well,
to
they could have
be.
been drafted also.
Huh?
Could have been drafting and doing this too. People that, you know, probably was a lot easier to dodge the draft back then.
I
1918,
have no
19...
idea. I don't know.
So now, do you remember the end of World War II? When did you first find out, I guess, about the Holocaust? I don't know what question that. When did you first...
You're getting your head in front of you.
When did you first hear about the Holocaust? You know,
After the war.
after the Germans had already surrendered?
Oh, sure.
And, like, pretty close to immediately after?
I remember the newsreels.
The newsreels,
Oh
yeah.
my
Yeah.
God.
There was rumors about everything. Rumors, you know. But it
During the
was
war, there were rumors?
Horrible.
Yeah, sure. You heard different things, you know, people talking, but never
You
really.
didn't know anything about the
Holocaust?
Holocaust during the war. You
Nothing-
didn't hear
nothing-
about that
no,
until
not
after
during
the war.
Afterwards, you know.
After it was
Yeah,
over,
after.
that's when you heard, when you realized what was going on. All these people that were being slaughtered. You didn't know about that before.
We used to go to the theater, and they used to have a newsreel. They had cartoons. They had
Right.
one movie, then they had second
Second
feature, you know, and then you could stay and watch it all over again too if
Right.
you wanted to. But those newsreels that came out after the war,
Oh, after the war.
after the war, or towards the end of the
No.
war, when they started showing it, I'm not sure.
No,
I
that
don't know
was
when they
after the
started
war.
seeing it. Were the most horrendous things
After
that
the
you
war
could
bombing.
imagine, where they actually showed you these people that were bones with skin
Skeletons.
hanging off of it,
Skeletons.
bodies being shoveled with big trucks into ditches. You know, I mean, it was, you couldn't believe what you were watching. And this
Yeah.
was newsreels that for kids his age, Josh's age. I mean,
Seven-
any of us
7
that
years
we
old.
7 years old.
Well,
that we
anybody
could
that
just
went
go to the movies on a
movies.
Saturday afternoon. There was no like, oh, the kids shouldn't watch this stuff, you know. But we all sat through that stuff, no matter how. I mean, you had to. We always made sure we got to the movies in time to get our 25 cents worth. We had to get the newsreel, our cartoons, and our two
What
movies.
kind of 25 cents?
15, I don't remember.
10 cents.
10 cents, okay. Maybe I went to a better movie than you.
No.
I only
No.
send you to the best spot.
Come on, you went to Bergen Street.
I went to the
movie on
Cameo. I didn't go to the
On
Bergen Street movie.
Where was the Cameo?
The Cameo was down, I think it was Elizabeth Avenue. Where was the Cameo? When we were on Elizabeth Avenue.
Right.
The Cameo
When
was
we
on
were
That's
Elizabeth-
right. Elizabeth Avenue.
Bergen Street wasn't until we moved up to Shepherd Avenue, but we were on Ridgewood Avenue, went to the Cameo, and we walked the whole way. And back
And they took lunch along and so double features. They take the whole day.
Now, wait a minute.
We didn't invite you. that's why
Just
you
a
didn't-
minute, just a minute.
Yeah.
How
get my
long after
brothers.
the war did you move to Shepherd Avenue? What year did you move to Shepherd Avenue?
I went into 6th grade in Shepherd Avenue. So what was I, 12? No, 6. About 12 years old.
So what year was that?
48?
36 plus 12.
Okay. 48.
48.
Around.
So 3 years after the war was over, you moved to Shepherd Avenue.
All right. And your point?
That you were going down to,
3 years
No, it wasn't
before,
quite
I
3
was
years.
at Cameo movie and could see the newsreels.
because I came home at the end of 45. And Mark was born December 45.
We were still on Ridgewood Avenue.
You were still on Ridgewood Avenue. And then I moved into Hawthorne Avenue in 46.
Yeah, Rance building.
Right.
I remember that place.
That's the one that came over from you with a bundle of money.
Oh, yeah?
She bought an apartment house.
Mm-hmm. And,
She's still around with all this money?
No.
no, she's gone.
Where's
That's,
all the,
family.
That's
Hold on.
Loretta's
where's all the
mother.
money?
That's Loretta's mother.
Oh,
Where's all
Faith
the
is
money?
left. Loretta's daughter is left. That's about the only. Loretta's daughter is still around.
Well, Ziggy had daughters too. Ziggy had 3
Oh, okay.
daughters.
So
They're
that part of
around.
it. So anyhow, what about the Cameo movie? I didn't go.
No, I was trying to figure out, so that was 3 years later, that was 3 years after the war, that you were seeing these pictures.
Okay.
Because we weren't aware of it until after the war was over, that we knew about all this. Because there were no pictures that were released before. You couldn't get into Germany and you couldn't get into Poland, so nothing was released until the soldiers went in to these places after the war was over, and that's where Adi worked,
Where? Body worked where?
with the people from the concentration camps when they came out. He was able to converse with them.
What did he do for them? What was he?
Well, he was working for the U.S. at the time.
Yeah, but I mean, these people came out. What did
Well,
he
he-
do with these people?
He
Translated?
He was a translator. He interviewed them to find out what, when,
And
where,
what
how,
family and where.
family, where to go, where to send them, what to do, and
Okay.
so on and so forth. And that's where he worked. Maybe he worked for the Russians at the time, but then he went for the U.S. He was
My
working for the
father
US.
has family in Romania. Where they are, I don't know anything about it. At one time, there was an ad in the forward in the Jewish paper that my father used to read, the forward, F-O-R-W-A-R-D. There was an item looking for the whereabouts of Max Kuntzman. His name was spelled K-U-N-T-Z-M-A-N. To contact, a certain place. They gave the address in Romania. My father always wrote letters to them and always got letters back. When this happened, everything stopped. He
World War
couldn't
II
get
happened.
any letters through. The letters came back. Then there was a place, when the ad was in the paper, there was a place in New York, the Hayas or some place.
Hayas.
Yeah.
H-I-A-S.
Buddy was a baby at the time. My neighbor, Pauline Moret, took care of him, where my father and I went to New York to this place to try maybe we can get some information, to find his family. He had a sister, a brother, and his mother, your mom was named after his mother. And we just couldn't get through. We came back, no information. Till today, I don't know where my father's family is. Now, Mom tried to get information for the name Kunzman on the internet. Nothing in that name. See, the name, it was changed to Kinsman when we came over. But Kunzman is like a jokester, a funster. That's the definition of Kunster. Maybe that's where Buddy gets the magician heritage.
Well, Daddy's name is listed on the manifest as Lupu, L-U-P-U.
Yeah, well, Daddy changed that when he went for his citizen papers.
Oh, he was using Lupu?
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. But then he changed to Looper.
How did they get Lupu? It wasn't Lupu in
Lupu in Romania is wolf.
Right.
And his father's name was Lupu Davidovich. That's their proper name. And when the father was in service, they always put the first name last and the last name first. So everyone called him Lupu.
Okay.
So they thought it was the second name. So he came to later life, with the second name Lupu.
Oh, okay.
And they used to thought the first name would be Wolf. Well, it couldn't be Wolf because Lupu is Wolf.
Right.
So his real name is Davidovich.
Right.
So if you ever want to look up the family, you can't look it up under Looper
Or Lupu.
or Lupu. It has to be
Davidovich.
Davidovich.
When Daddy was in school in Europe, when he was in Europe, he went under the name of Davidovich?
I don't think so. I think it was from Romania at that time, when they came to England, it was Lupu.
Okay, so...
That's why you got the information on the internet under the name of Lupu. After they all used that name.
Used it. Okay. That's interesting. Davidovich. Okay.
He shut that off, didn't
No,
No, it's
wants
still
to keep
going.
on
It's still
talking.
going?
It's still going.
Well, he
my
wants
God.
us to keep on talking, ask questions, and keep on, even if he's not here. So what else do we want to discuss?
I don't know.
he? Well, get back to,
All I can say is, it's not the end yet, but I can tell you that Gert was the best thing that was marrying my brother, and there was the most wonderful, wonderful relationship in a lifetime. She's better than a sister.
Oh, that's nice.
thank you.
Very
I am fortunate in all my family, my love.
I thank you.
Okay, and what were you going to say? Started to say we were going to talk about something?
No, I was just going to go back to...
And even to go further, even her children are wonderful to me. As I say, I'm the luckiest
You're
woman
a tati.
in the world. And I always say, I don't know what I did to deserve to have the love from all my family, all over, except Shady. She'll go down in history.
Shandy is a niece on my father's side. She's my father's sister's daughter. And lives in Florida with them
We had a
too.
couple of laughs that you missed out on, David.
I have it on tape, it's okay. You weren't laughing about me.
No,
we weren't even discussing
You're rather
you.
boring.
Thanks.
They don't have anything to
Yeah.
say about you.
Yeah.
What else?
Well, anything else about World War II that you'd want to say? I mean,
I had my say just now.
Well, as far as World War II was concerned, I spent all that time out in Illinois with Ben, and he was transferred. He was transferred from Scottsfield to Schnutfield. Now, Scottsfield was in Belleville, Illinois, and that is close to St. Louis, across the river. And he was transferred to Schnutfield, which is Champaign-Urbana. And that's where the University of Illinois is located. And we lived there. And then, when things were getting rough overseas, they were taking anything and everything and shipping them overseas. I remember one fellow was a diabetic, and he came in his 1B, and they shipped him overseas to stay behind the lines, you know, to relieve another soldier to go. And Ben was supposed to be shipped out also. He was supposed to be shipped out 3 times. The first time, he stepped on a stone getting off a bicycle, and he broke his ankle.
on purpose?
No. No, that was out in Illinois. That's the first time he came home with the cast. The second time, he was supposed to be shipped out of St. Louis, out of, no, wait, which one was it? Champaign. He did something to his knee. Oh, he was in a football game. They were playing kickball or something.
War injuries are a bitch.
Yeah.
You have a Purple Heart for any of these?
Yeah, no, but he kept him from going overseas.
Oh, smart.
He did something to his knee. Then he was transferred to, because we came home on furlough one time. He was wearing the cast. Then he was,
a removable cast that, you know.
yeah, he was able to take the cast off.
Just when he's sleeping.
Right. Then we were transferred, we went to Champaign, Illinois, and we had a wonderful life out there. The place we lived in was really delightful with the people. In fact, they wanted us to stay there. They were in the wallpaper and paint business, and they wanted to open a store for Ben in another town if we would stay. But we decided to come back home. Family was back here. But while he was out there was another big push, and they were going to send him. And his CO sent him back to Scottsfield to go to radio school for Morse code. And that was in 45. And that's when they, in August, they declared
The German surrendered? and they
the
declared victory?
Germans surrendered, VJ Day. No, that was
The
VE
VJ,
Day, wasn't
yeah.
it?
Victory of Europe. victory of
VJ was
Japan.
first. Yeah, this was after VJ Day, no? Yeah. Yeah, so he was taking Morse code at the time he was going to school. And then the war was over.
You didn't have to finish out any more time, or?
Yeah. I came home first, I was pregnant.
Got a question.
What?
The end of the war. The atomic bomb. What were the thoughts over here about that? when we dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Wonderful.
Grandma, same thing. Wiped out entire cities.
That's right.
Served him right.
That's right.
What do you
They
remember?
played a dirty trick on us. They came over without any warning. They came over without any warning whatsoever. Killed our men. Killed civilians. And they were dirty, dirty
Welcome.
fighters. When they captured the men, when they had them prisoners with the torture and the forced marches and the things they made the soldiers do.
So, you had no problems when that was dropped?
I had no problem with it, no.
With the general consensus across the United States, was that pretty much the same? Was, we got this wonderful new bomb that can wipe out your cities? No problem? Do you remember?
Not with me.
Nothing to say.
You have a
Put an
problem
end
with
to
it?
the war.
Huh?
It put an end to the war,
Trying to
number
put it
one.
into perspective of the time. I mean, it's very different to look at it from.
There was
That's right.
such a feeling of patriotism. Well, you've seen it with the September 11th bit. I mean, before that, there was no patriotism around here at all.
But people still would not, people would still be opposed today. There would still be a large opposition to dropping a nuclear bomb in Afghanistan today.
Yeah,
You think
there would
so?
be a large opposition. There's rallies now, people who won't go to war.
So I'm just wondering if in the time
We
in
never saw
1945,
anything like that then. There was, you know what? They didn't have these kind of rallies back then. You didn't see all these groups
No.
that went
protesting,
this
No.
and
everyone just
protesting
blindly
that.
got on the bandwagon.
Exactly. You never. If they
You
say-
believe what your politicians told you, and you believe what your reporters told you. You didn't question Walter Winchell. If they said that the U.S. was not torturing people, then you believe
We
it.
have no way to find, how can we
No.
find that? We
Well, not
had to
about
take
what?
their word.
But you took their word,
They had to.
and you believe the politicians.
Oh,
Do you
had
believe
to.
today's
It
politicians?
wasn't a politician. Now, wait a minute. The situation then was entirely different than it is today. Altogether different. When it came with the bombing of Pearl Harbor, that was a terrible, terrible thing that happened.
Mhm.
I know people in my neighborhood. There was one boy that lived in my neighborhood, this was before I was married, that was in Pearl Harbor, and he was killed. And you'd be surprised what rallies they had on the street with this boy's parents.
Mhm.
In fact, they named a park after him on Elizabeth Avenue.
What's the name? What's the name of the park? Do you remember?
I don't remember now.
Okay, just curious.
But they named a park after this boy on Elizabeth Avenue during the war, and it was their way after the war.
Didn't the homes that had men in service have stars and stuff on the windows? Some sort of banners or flame? Or
Yes.
there was something on people's windows?
Anybody that had somebody in service used to have a gold star in the window.
Okay. I don't remember seeing, there was something.
Right. And then if they lost somebody, there was something else that they, I don't remember what that was. They put something in the window when they lost somebody in service. Do you remember?
Wasn't it the gold star for deceased? And there's just a star, a regular star flag for somebody in service? There's a silver star. A gold star, I think, was for the lost.
I don't remember because all the
Well, it was
time
one
that we were
time-
out in Illinois, we weren't
Yeah, all
part
right, there was
of
one,
that.
one star that showed, that you lost somebody.
So anyway, I guess how you were saying it was different back, why did you guys
Oh, you
believe
mean
the
as far as-
politicians and the president
wait a
come
minute.
out and say, right now you said the president knew that Japan was going to be bombed, that Japan was going to bomb Pearl Harbor, excuse me, that Roosevelt knew that at the
We
time.
had a
But
contingent.
you didn't believe that at the time. If you had
We
known that at the
didn't
time,
know. We
that
didn't
Roosevelt
know.
Well, Roosevelt knew. You didn't know Roosevelt knew, is what I'm saying.
Not at the time. This
Right.
came out afterwards.
But
Pearl
This
Harbor.
came out after the
Pearl
war.
Harbor was a terrible shock too.
that's what I'm saying. But
So we said that before, it was a shock, but this is close to home, it's worse.
No, he's talking about a different,
But when Pearl
different
Harbor
point of
hit,
view.
I guess my thing, I'm just trying to talk about how different it is today, where people are very much, they disbelieve generally the politician. There's much more of there's a lot more protests of government things that the government does. It's not all like in World War II. You're saying everyone was behind the war effort. There was
First of
never
all-
any
first of all,
anti-war effort.
did we have TV then? It had just come out.
Mhm.
Okay?
We didn't have any.
During the war, you didn't have any. No, it came out like after the war. You didn't have TV. You didn't have the coverage then that you have now.
Mhm.
You didn't have, now you have correspondence from different stations, different newspapers, right at the scene of where things are happening, and you get it instantly. It's brought back to you as they are speaking. You had none of that at that time.
And that's why you have all the protests now that you didn't have before.
You didn't have the communication. You didn't have the, you weren't on top of the news the way you are today.
Mhm.
I don't think the news was as slanted then as it is today.
Was it,
It
well,
couldn't be slanted.
You
It
saw
couldn't be
what was,
slanted.
what happened. Today,
did they filter what you saw?
did they filter what we saw?
No, you didn't see anything.
I'm talking about afterwards.
You're
like-
talking about World War II.
Or what you heard, or what was reported in the papers and in the radio, on the radio. I mean, they didn't have to
Things
be
that
TV
happened
coverage.
after it
You're saying there's
happened.
Just things after
After
it
it happened, they
after
told
it
you.
happened.
Right.
You didn't know about the, when they crossed the English Channel to Germany. What was that? The coast, when they went up the coast?
Oh,
What
Normandy?
was that?
When they invaded Normandy? The
When they
Normandy
invaded
invasion?
Normandy?
Normandy invasion?
The Normandy invasion?
When they hit-
You knew nothing about it.
Absolutely.
All that was secretive. So nobody knew about it. Nothing leaked out to Germany
Right.
and thereabouts. You knew nothing about that. What are you eating now?
My wife is eating donuts, just for the record.
You didn't know that until after it was over and done with, after the war. Not during the war.
So you're saying that's why there was much more blind acceptance back then? That there
It
was less-
wasn't blind acceptance.
What would you?
It wasn't really blind acceptance. It was a war that you had to win.
Mhm.
Okay? They bombed Pearl Harbor.
We're going to get their ass.
But it was blind acceptance because
You didn't know
you
anything.
didn't know, so it was- you had to accept it. Blindly, you had to accept
It's
it.
not that you had to accept it. You
had
didn't
no
know what was
choice.
going on.
You had no choice.
And there was no reason to distrust, I guess.
No, there was no reason to distrust then.
Mhm.
You had to, things were going on. Little by little, you were getting the trickle of what happened on the islands.
In the Pacific
Little by
Ocean,
little,
out in the Pacific.
right. You didn't know about it.
What about when they put the Japanese, American Japanese into
Camps.
And
prison
here
camps?
they
Did
tell
anybody
you
think anything
everything.
about it?
You protest and it don't
That's
help
what
you
they did.
anything. They still
No,
do what
nobody
they
was
want to
doing
do.
I gotta go get some water.
Fights
It
and
was.
fights.
What do you remember about the day Roosevelt died? Do you have any memories of that day?
Of what?
When FDR died?
It was a terrible shock, I remember. Oh, the whole country was in shock because he died suddenly. He wasn't sick.
Right.
He wasn't sick. It was just that.
Do you remember that day though?
I remember that day. I don't remember exactly what, where, or when. I remember more when Kennedy was shot. I remember where it was that I heard it and so on and so forth. But with Roosevelt, it came over radio. And it was a shock. And I remember his body being transported back on the train.
The little girl.
And it stopped at different stations. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that. The only memory I have of that day, we were on Ridgewood Avenue.
Yeah.
I was coming out down the driveway, and the house, if you're coming towards the street, the house on our left had those open porches like you had on Harding Terrace, you know, you had an open porch, like, and there was the woman on the second floor was sitting on the porch, and she was crying.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what it was all about. I didn't know what was going until I found out later that Roosevelt died, that the president died, and that's why she was crying. I mean, it didn't affect me as a child personally.
No,
I mean, I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel sad. I didn't.
You didn't
from
know.
that-
You weren't
from that
aware.
day,
It didn't make
the
any
only
difference
thing that
to you.
impressed me was the fact that here was this adult woman sitting on her porch crying so hard. I was just wondering if it affected other people at that.
Nothing like that.
Did you get any, Mom? No, it didn't bother you? Nothing at all.
No, it was a terrible shock, and he was, don't forget, he was commander-in-chief. This was during the war.
We died during, it was all during the war that he died?
Yeah,
I
'cause
didn't know that.
Truman dropped the bomb.
Truman?
But
Oh,
It was
okay.
Truman that
Truman's decision.
Oh, okay, see, I'm a
but him.
She
Yeah,
agrees.
it was-
She agrees very easily with
was
that.
wasn't it his fourth term?
Truman's?
No,
No,
Roosevelt.
Roosevelt's fourth term.
I don't know.
That's when they passed the law that only 2 terms.
After, I mean,
He
he
was on
was,
FDR's?
yeah.
FDR was on his 4th term.
People loved him.
Yeah, I think so.
They give
Sure.
loved him, sucker.
All right, well,
You don't remember that?
I'll look at it.
He'll look it up, he'll check it out.
I got the,
He was on his 4th term. Died, that's when he died.
remember he died in office. All right, before we go into some of the other questions, I guess we'll continue on kind of in the time period now. Okay, World War II ends. Korean War. Any impact? Is that a minor thing in your mind?
It was. Basically, it really didn't touch us, the Korean War.
Was Billy called up again for the Korean War?
Now,
No.
what year was the Korean War?
He
Do you
was called
remember?
back for something.
The Korean War was very shortly after World War II, wasn't it?
Seemed like 51,
Somewhere around there.
around the early 50s. I'm not sure what.
Yes. Now wait a minute.
Do you remember when the Korean War was?
Is it funny? I don't remember. Now when was the? When did the
Dates don't stick with me.
other war?
Vietnam was
Yeah.
late 60s.
That was the late '60s. That's when. Yeah, that's when Mark and that's when Billy joined the.
When it comes to dates, I have to
Now,
look
wait a
up the
minute, when he-
calendar.
he-
Billy was recalled for something,
Yes.
for one of
The
the...
National Guards. Billy was in the National
No,
Guard,
Herbie
right?
was in the National Guard.
Who?
Herbie. Billy wasn't in the National
No.
Guard. Billy was in the
I
Army.
was a regular infantryman.
Oh, Billy was in the regular.
He was regular
Yeah.
Army. And then when one of these things came out, I know he was recalled. I mean, he didn't leave the country,
Yeah, he
but
was.
he replaced somebody who
What do you
was
see? Your mom
sent
Your
out.
grandma's talking? Your grandma's talking? Your grandma?
Well, then who was in the National Guard beside Mark?
Herbie. Herbie was in National Guard.
And how about Buddy?
Now, Buddy was also nothing in the army. He only stole the army trucks, that's all.
All right, we'll get to that story.
Now, wait a minute, wasn't Buddy in National Guard?
No, no. Not that I know of.
Okay. So,
Buddy didn't go for basic training?
He sure did, so did Billy, went for basic
Well, they, even in the National Guard, you got to go basic training.
Dixie. In Fort Dixie.
In Fort Dix, not Fort Dixie.
Fort Dix.
Fort Dix.
Fort Dix.
Buddy was in
Dixie
National
Ice Cream
Guard.
Cone, yeah, okay.
okay.
What do you want to know?
All right, now let's.
You know, incidentally,
We're up in World War II now.
no, wait a
Pretty
minute,
warm.
talking about the atomic bomb
Yes.
that we dropped in Japan. We went back after the war, and we brought those people to America,
What people?
the people that were burned,
Some of those that survived the bomb.
the survival, brought them to America, gave them medical treatments. They did what they could afterward, because it was right after that that they declared a truce. They surrendered.
Surrendered right after the second bomb.
That's right.
Anyone.
And
What,
then
you
they
want your
went in and
grandma?
they brought those
You
people
want your
back.
grandma? I'm a grandma too. She's pushing the content above
Do
everything.
you want a drink of water? You want a drink of water?
Yeah, they're here videotaping Grandmama's Aunt Gert right now.
She's a worker. She wouldn't bother me.
Questions on history and stuff like that.
Want to give her a drink from
That
the
doesn't
glass?
sound, that doesn't sound
So,
too
Yeah.
okay.
All right,
Now
so
we're up into the late 40s. What was life like now in the late 40s, early 50s? I mean, everyone have cars. You know, plane transportation where people. I mean, when was your first? How about this? When was your first plane ride? Do you remember your first plane ride?
Okay, come I got mine. I want to see that she put all over the bomb.
Do you remember your first plane ride?
Huh?
Do you remember your first plane ride?
Yes.
Where was it from and to and when? How old were you?
From